I don't really like samples. Like, I don't think they're that inspiring, or I don't get that much out of using them. I think that they are actually pretty uninspiring.
It's great doing this, honestly. It's great meeting you, and I'm thankful that we've been able to do this.
Yeah.
I'm very much enjoying being in San Francisco. And I can see that, obviously, you've got like blue skies every single day. I'm sure that helps with creativity and...
Blue skies here, not blue skies in the city.
No?
In San Francisco. Yeah.
Okay.
It was pretty foggy there today, right?
It was, yeah. So one of the questions I want to ask you about, the product names that you have for performance samples, like Vista, Oceania, Pacific,
Yeah.
they kind of evoke a lot of imagery in the names. And I know you've spoken a little bit about this, but the kind of scenery around where you live and these kind of places inspire you. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm absolutely inspired by my area. I've always been inspired by place, like over like human emotion, like in terms of composing music.
Right.
I mean, human emotion is a close second, but really place has a lot of emotion for me, like the spirit of a place, like mountains or hills or beaches. And I'm thankful that I grew up in such a just really beautiful area. So small area, but beautiful area. So this is actually not even the area I grew up in. It's just like a city for me.
Yeah, it's such stunning terrain everywhere in San Francisco. I can absolutely see what would inspire you about that.
Vista and Pacific and all those names are definitely inspired by that.
Pacific Strings came out recently.
Yeah, that was mid-December 2022.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. And I've really enjoyed using that. And I genuinely mean that.
Nice.
Really good. Use that on a film score in some cues, layering it in with other libraries, and on its own it sounds great as well. The Mark Arto in that definitely, I think, is the best on the market, in my opinion anyway, in my use case for how I use that kind of articulation. Moving forwards, you have the rest of the Pacific series, but you also have Vista II and Voyage coming out. That's a lot of stuff in the pipeline. How do you manage all that?
Yeah, well, there's Pacific brass, winds, percussion, solo strings, and Vista II, and percussion library, there's Marshland, choir, Oceania 3, a lot of stuff. I've tried to do everything at once before, and it's too much.
Okay.
So kind of prioritizing projects is really important.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's for sure. It's just so much work. I
How
don't
do
think people realize just the level of finesse involved with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then even with, like, just from the recording stage, you might have to redo some things because it's maybe not turned out how you wanted, and then you have pickup sessions and...
Yeah, especially with Vista II, I was talking with a friend about this, and they were saying, I was complaining about something in the library, a certain articulation, which I was having trouble with, and they were saying, well, why didn't you have trouble with that with Pacific or in the past? And I was basically saying, well, standards just keep getting elevated.
Okay.
So it's like it could be the same thing, but a year later, it no longer is satisfactory. So with Vista II, there's been a lot of re-records.
Okay.
Well, not a lot of re-records, but some, especially at the beginning. Like the first 4 violin sessions I did, like the first 12 hours of violin sessions, I had to trash. Just because it was like, I'm not trying to re-record Vista 1. Like I'm trying to improve the intonation, I'm trying to improve this. Why would I just, release this? I don't want to do that. It's kind of embarrassing. So, I kept recording until getting some better results. But the resources and budgets and all that kind of stuff can get out of control. Mm-hmm. And they have with Vista II. Sure. Unfortunately.
So with all of that, though, at least from what we've discussed a little bit, it seems like you purposefully take on quite a lot of risk with your philosophy of how you approach making products and trying to push forwards into actually evolving what sample libraries can do.
Yeah, well, I'm a super small developer. It's a really tiny operation. So what happens when a tiny operation, or when I want to do projects which are not tiny projects, which are large projects, it's not necessarily a comfortable position to be in terms of resources. So, yeah, I think that as a dev, I have to be taking risks, anywhere from a moderate amount to a large amount. And I personally think that I take large risks.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I could make any progress if I wasn't taking a lot of risks. Yeah, these projects just, cost a lot, take a lot of resources, and you do the best you can, you put it out there, and then hopefully people buy it. Hopefully. It's no confirmation of anything. Ever.
And that's the scary part, yeah.
Yeah, and I guess I don't focus on that when I'm working on it, because you can't have that reality breathing down your neck.
Sure.
Like, I mean, it is going to some degree, but you have to put some separation on that, because you have to focus on the topic at hand, which is the actual finesse work and everything else.
Yeah. And also, you've mentioned that the reason you do this, one of the reasons as well, is that you're actually unhappy with the tools that are available across the entire industry, which surprised me, because I would have thought, with what you make, I thought you would be, really happy with it and proud. But you have this balance of being, satisfied with the work you're doing, but you're also really thinking there's so much that can be improved, and that these tools can be advanced a lot more than what they are at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, just speaking for my stuff at least, I don't really like samples. I don't think they're that inspiring, or I don't get that much out of using them. I think that they are actually pretty uninspiring. And I'm really impressed that people can. I mean, I guess they don't really have an option, right? If you're a composer, you don't get to work with live orchestra all the time, and that has its own set of challenges. But
sure.
I find samples kind of fatiguing to work with and annoying.
That's interesting. Is that the workflow of it that you find frustrating, or the actual samples themselves?
It's the latter. So it's the samples themselves, and it just, for somebody who's listened to a lot of live recordings, we're just so far from where we need to be. I don't know if anybody agrees with me on that, but that's definitely what drives my interest in trying to push forward. So that's a big fuel for me.
That's cool. And I honestly, I remember you talked about it on your Instagram story, and I honestly was surprised when you said that you're not inspired by, your own samples and stuff, which was really, surprising to me, because for me, I find those kind of tools really inspiring, funnily enough, so I can't even, it's like trying to comprehend what you see as what is missing, and what, in your mind, you envision what it can be. And for in my position, I'm trying to then understand, well, what is it that you think can be so much better?
Well, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you want the developer to be unsatisfied. As a customer, you don't want the developer to be like, okay, well, we figured it out. We figured it out. We recorded an orchestra, at so and so stage, and we figured it out. It's all done. This is all you're ever going to need. I think you want the developer to not be happy with stuff and not be satisfied, because as soon as the developer's satisfied, where does innovation happen?
Okay.
Is that a little bit concerning? So I think as a developer, I need to be at least a little bit miserable some of the time. I think it's important. Okay. I think more developers should be a little bit miserable. Don't be too happy. If the resources involved, the creativity involved, or necessary, I think it's just so much focus to get some good results, and luck.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that I've gotten there, but yeah.
I think your products are on that path, and what's already out there at the moment. You aren't afraid to go in with character, obviously. Just specific strings, for example, top of the mod wheel on the legatos, you have very obvious transitions, and that's a very big stylistic kind of choice that you made with that.
With Pacific?
Yeah. What did I say? Did I say Pacific?
I think
Did I say Vista?
My memory sucks.
I meant, if I said Vista, I meant Pacific. I don't have Vista.
Yeah, Pacific. That was something that I was complaining about. That's something I'm improving on in Vista II.
Okay.
I heard what people were saying in that one. I don't know if I would say it was portamento, like I heard some people say, but I had some of the players sliding. I had some of the players doing position changes. But Vista II is very much like taking what was wrong with Pacific and trying to improve on it.
Okay, cool.
Except I don't like the room as much. I mean, it's a drier room.
Yeah.
That's preference.
Yeah, sure.
I'm very specific about rooms I like. And also, just because I like a room doesn't mean it's the only option. Like, a lot of people like Vista. I'm not a huge fan of Vista.
Okay.
I think the intonation was kind of all over the place. But that doesn't matter what I think. It matters what the users think.
Right, yeah.
Because I can complain about anything all day long. So it really doesn't matter. And again, I should be complaining about my stuff because that means I can improve.
Sure.
If I'm just like, oh, my stuff is fine, then how can I improve?
Yeah, and absolutely.
Really
It's the same in any skill or craft or industry you go into. I think there's that balance. I've heard it described before as like blissful dissatisfaction.
Okay.
You are really proud of what you do and what you have achieved, and you're happy with the work, but you're just dissatisfied enough that it forces you to push forwards and improve and innovate and see that there's still room to grow. And you can see, like, even, let's say specifically like film composers or anything like that, you hear some of them talk in interviews who've been in this industry for a long time, and they make it clear that they still are looking for the best piece of work that they haven't done yet. I think it's an amazing kind of mindset to have. Obviously, personally, I think you can't just be miserable and never happy with what you've done.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But I can appreciate, the mindset that works for you, and I want to acknowledge you on, taking that route of wanting to really improve the kind of tools that are available across the industry and pushing the envelope of what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's amazing, and I can see it, and I think everyone can see it, and I think that's one of the big reasons why people love your stuff, is that it's not the normal thing. Like, you even just, like, one of the things is you list the library limitations on your product pages. Who else does that?
That's my favorite part of the whole process. It's important. It's really important for me to kind of think through what could, like, might not work for others.
Sure, yeah,
It's certainly not going to be comprehensive.
Yeah, of course.
Because it's just from my perspective. But, okay, what could not work, and then, add it in there and just be upfront. And because sometimes people think that, these are, well, why don't you just change it?
Yeah.
Well, because that's the library. It's like I'm just being honest about what the library is.
Yeah.
And then you get to decide. And the great thing about these days is there's plenty of options. You don't like it?
So
plenty
many
of
options.
other options. I certainly am not interested in tricking or convincing anybody to get my libraries. And kind of the opposite. I'm always trying to strip down anything which might be like too decorative or too, superfluous, I guess is the word for some of the descriptions of the library. People are super smart these days, and no one likes to be told what they're hearing. They can hear what they're hearing.
Yeah.
Don't tell them what they're hearing. I don't want to be told what I'm hearing. I don't want to be told this is lyrical, this is emotional. I'll decide that. Don't tell me. Yet, companies keep putting all that kind of wording in there, or the marketing departments, and it's insulting to one's intelligence. I want people to be able to use their own ears and evaluate, and if it doesn't work for them, that's fine. But I don't want to tell people what they're hearing. It's like, how ridiculous is that? So, if I ever start doing that, just stop talking to me.
Well, if you have, like, as you have many string libraries in the kind of pipeline, you kind of have to do it to some degree, right? Like, you have to say something to be able to, at least people to be able to distinguish what it is. Like, if you have Konmoto, Vista I, Vista II, Pacific strings.
Oh, sure. I mean,
then,
but there's a difference between going out of one's way to, there's a difference.
Sure, yeah. I see what you mean, like, not going over the top with trying to sell it, and instead just showing it for what it is.
Absolutely.
And allowing people to then also make up their own decision as well.
Yeah. And it goes for anything. I mean, like, for instance, right now I'm kind of exploring a lot more dynamic sampling, like a lot of dynamics. I think Vista II has up to 12 dynamics on legato.
Which is crazy.
Yeah. But as I'll tell people, it's like, here's the reality. I could say dynamics are the key to everything. They're amazing, and it's this super strong selling point. I mean, they're cool. I mean, it allows you to kind of not have to. You can sit lower in the range, and you can sit without having to get into an abrasive range.
Sure.
So that's one benefit. But there's plenty of great libraries made with much less dynamics.
Yeah, it's true.
And so it's like, okay, I am selling it. I am saying that it's important, but I'm not saying it's everything. Yeah, Vista II is one library that brings me back to a lot of the custom private sampling I was doing about 10 or 11 years ago. And
awesome.
It reminds me probably the most out of any commercial library I've done so far of a particular private project I did about 10 years ago, which a particular composer is known for using a lot of in his mock-ups. I think you would know who I'm talking about. And that's exciting for me because there's a lot of magic captured back then with some of these things, and it really bothers me when I can't recreate something. And that's definitely happened. Like there's certain magic in older private libraries that I've built.
Yeah.
Like say 10 years ago, which for the life of me, I can't recreate, and I do a lot of things to recreate them, and I can't. And it's like super frustrating. Like, I want to cry.
That's the amazing thing with sample libraries as well, is you're kind of capturing a moment in time.
Yeah.
And there's some products that are like 15 years old that I know I've bought recently, but they're old and they still sound great. And there's something that's so different about other ones. Mm-hmm. Or I know some people talk about some samples that they have from 20 years ago that still sound good, that they still use every now and then, and nothing else can recreate that kind of tone or character.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting. Yeah. Quite the interesting part of sampling, isn't it? Where,
Yeah, I've heard people say it, and I've also lived it, because, those libraries from 10 years ago or so that I did, they're 3 dynamics, say, or 4, something simple like that. And now I'm doing something with like Vista II has 12. And so I'm always pretty transparent in that, yes, I'm focused on a lot of dynamics right now. I think it's helpful. It sure adds a lot to the session time, unfortunately.
On the cost.
Oh yeah, it's just like it quadruples, triples, whatever. But it's not everything. So I'm literally, maybe I'm working against myself by saying that, but like some of these older libraries, I might have 3 dynamics, but the magic might have more magic than library now, which is like 10 dynamics or 11 for legato, for instance.
Yeah.
So does it mean something? Yeah. Does it mean everything? No. It's just part of this process. It's really hard to pin down what works and what doesn't, even for somebody like me who lives and breathes it every day.
Yeah.
So I'm saying all this, getting sentimental about these older private libraries in the face of building these libraries now, which are so much more robust in terms of all that. What does it mean? Well, it doesn't mean everything to have all that dynamic range, but it definitely is something I'm trying to normalize for myself, for my libraries, and as long as I can keep affording those sessions. Yeah. But we'll see, I guess, how it trickles down into competitors as well. I think there's this idea of diminishing returns with some of this stuff,
right?
In terms of dynamics, or in terms of how deep the sampling process goes. Every developer has to decide on those diminishing returns for themselves. For me, it was a curiosity to explore a wide dynamic range, and that's all it is. But it's enough for me to pursue it.
Great job with everything you're doing.
Yeah.
I mean that. Like, the stuff that you have seriously is great, and it's awesome for working composers. It is such good stuff.
Thanks, man.
Thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Jasper, for your time.
Thank you.
Hope you found it insightful and interesting. Let us know what you thought in the comments, and we'll see you soon. Bye.